Hello, everyone who's watching. My name is Stuart McCalla. Welcome to the conversation with these amazing folks that I get to be in partnership with and work with. I'm a managing partner at Evolution, and one of the things that we're going to talk about today is coaching, especially from a BIPOC or POGM experience. We'll also talk about what those terms are. I'll have everybody introduce themselves, of course, but I just want to give a little bit more context about my role in Evolution, which is I'm one of the 4 people who think about Evolution as a collective of coaches who are deeply committed to transforming business for good. The coaches you see here on this panel are coaches that I have talked to, listened to, been surprised, learned from, and I'm excited to have a conversation with all of us around what coaching means, especially for BIPOC or POGM folks. And why don't we start with you, Solunis? Maybe if you can introduce yourself, and then we'll go around, and whoever goes next, we'll go next.
Happy to. Thank you, Stuart. My name is Solunis Nicole Bay. I'm a somatic coach, and I am privileged to be here with Evolution. So what I most enjoy working with my clients on is their power, purpose, and then working through the domains of pleasure. Like, what does that mean to live an authentically full and fulfilling life? That could be inside of your work domain or inside of your personal space, right? Oftentimes, one affects the other. So I find that when I'm with my clients, I'm looking at the totality or the wholeness of the person and helping them to support them towards what their dream life or what they envision to be purposeful.
Yeah, thank you. Rudy, why don't you go next?
I'm happy to. Thank you, Stuart. Greetings, everyone, and I'm happy to be on this panel with these, my colleagues. I have such respect and admiration and appreciation for each of you. So it's really good to get to do this together. My name's Rudy Nickens, and I am I think that what I like the most about coaching is that I've been able to meld my many decades long experience as a leader and practitioner of all things related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and sustainability and justice into a way that I can help move individuals and organizations with that honed in one-on-one time focused on helping people find themselves and where they are in this journey, and to be able to really support movement. I think coaching is a really valuable tool, and I'm really glad that I get to do that. And also, you know, you can do things by yourself, but oh my God, it's so nice to do it in community. So I'm really happy that I found a community of other coaches with such integrity and such vision that we are all aligned in what we want for the world, and we do it differently necessarily because we are different, and that's okay too. But we have similar values, and I'm just really grateful that I found this body of people to be connected to do this work. So happy to be here.
How about you, Lakeya?
Thank you, Stuart. So hello, everyone. I'm Lakeya Cherry. I am an executive leadership coach. I'm also a nonprofit executive and proud partner of Evolution. The majority of my career has been spent as a nonprofit executive, which informs a lot of my work that I do as a coach. Being a woman of color in a leadership role has allowed me to see that there's not too many people like us and that we do need support. So I use my own personal and lived experience to inform the work that I do, primarily with other women and other people from marginalized identities.
Thank you. Thank you. I think this, you know, as you were saying that, Lakeya, what really comes to mind is it's always interesting to have people who are in marginalized communities who are looking for coaches, and to find coaches who are of underrepresented groups as well too. Coaching is usually a pretty privileged experience. So, you know, I want to ask an open question, which is, what was your journey like into coaching? How did you get into this? How did you decide this was the path that you wanted to take? And let's kick it off. Whoever wants to start,
If you don't mind, I'll go first.
please.
So I started off as a nonprofit executive early in my 30s. I didn't know too much about running a nonprofit organization, running a board, or what it entailed. And so I had to learn a lot on my own. When I first started, my board was primarily white, and many of the members of the association that I run was primarily white. So I didn't really have too many people who looked like me who I could go to for support. And while I had support from my board and other people, it was a little bit different. I was at a point in my career where I was doing well. And immediately when I moved into this executive role, I started feeling a lot of self-doubt and imposter syndrome. It wasn't until someone mentioned that I should consider getting an executive coach that I began to see that there was an opportunity to get support from someone external of my everyday working world. At that time, I didn't know what coaching was. My background is in social work, and I had only thought of coaches with relation to sports. And so I applied for a fellowship program, had an executive coach. She wasn't a woman of color, but she was excellent. And that was my first introduction to coaching. It helped give me the support I needed. It was unbiased. It allowed me to see that I already had the tools I needed. But the most pivotal part was that it taught me that I could be a coach too, and I needed to be a coach because there needs to be more representation in coaching.
Yeah, that's powerful. Representation does matter, right? If you get to see yourself as a coach, to be coached, and then you get to see yourself as a coach, it's a powerful thing. What about the rest of you? How'd you get into coaching?
I mean, I love what Lakeya just said. That was really a beautiful arc and introduction to like how one comes into coaching. Like you, I did a lot of work in movement. So most of my background is inside of policy. And my introduction to coaching was like, I needed to save my own life. So I was looking for more alignment while also having impact. I didn't know that coaching was going to be the way that I was going to do that, but I needed to, one, quit the career that was serving many people, but not serving myself. Like I was like running on empty most of the time. And I didn't know how to set boundaries. I didn't know how to step into practices that were resilient for me. So I entered into this space from a place of needing lots of support in every aspect of my life. And upon doing that kind of healing work is when I felt inspired to want to share what I learned over a course of like 7 or 8 years and become a coach and a guide for others. So that's how my journey landed me here.
Wow, I love what both of you said. And it sort of makes me, realize that my journey, the difference between our journeys. I think once again, I find myself doing something, I didn't get coached. I didn't grow up in a world where coaching was available to me. I made my way, as a leader and as executive and as doing many, many big things, sort of, scratching my way sometimes by myself. And I think about all the things that I didn't get, and I don't want anybody to not have what I didn't get. I want people to have, now that I know, once I found out this benefit, this resource, this tool was available, and I got coaching once I figured it out, but oh my God, how wonderful it is to like be able to offer people, the benefit of knowing what it would be like to have your life better by having someone think with you about your life. So I came into coaching just like I do many other things in my as I look through my life of yet another thing that I can help to think about people well, to help people think about themselves well. And it's been great to have added this skill. I mean, I've done counseling and mentoring and other things, but this is a different lane. And I really love finding and honing specific skills about living and working in this lane of coaching.
As I listen to the three of you, what I'm struck by is sort of finding out, there's this resource that we can tap into. And for me, my experience was I was working in tech, and one of the only in many situations. But I also saw a lot of people in pain around me, and I was always curious about, like, why are leaders making the decisions, especially in the tech industry, right? Things are moving so fast. Things are moving at the speed of innovation, sometimes a little bit beyond that pace. And so it was really interesting to support leaders who were struggling, and as I was struggling leading in those tech spaces as well too. And so I'm always struck by, when do you get a chance to be coached, especially as an underrepresented person? When do you get a chance to be coached? When do you get a chance to say, hey, I need help, and be okay with getting help? Because coaching is support and help. I'm curious, as I've listened to you all too, as coaches, what is it your experience around providing coaching for people? So POGM stands for people of the global majority. It's a term that we use here, evolution. And I'll just say I learned from Rudy many years ago, but it's the idea that there are many and way more people, Black and brown people in the world than there are sort of the dominant white minority in the world that we currently see. And so it's a way to sort of break the minority majority model that we see here in the United States. So I'm curious a little bit about, what is it like for you all to coach people of the global majority, and what's your experience coaching people of the global majority?
Can I jump in here a little?
Yeah, please. And let's invite this as a conversation, so where there's no,
No
raise your
order.
hand. Yeah, exactly. We can just go. Yeah.
Great. One of the things I find, or rather, let me back up here, right? The clients who find me most useful tend to be children of immigrants, right? Mm-hmm. And as someone who is multi-ethnic and who recognizes her multi-ethnic family and different lineages and traditions, like, that's one of the things that comes really forward when I'm meeting my client. Like, I bring all of that cultural nuance and language and body movement into the session, so that there is a container that's recognizable to my clients, and oftentimes a sense of safety and companionship. Like, I'm your partner through this change, right? I know, I might know where you're coming from, but at least if I don't, I have the ears enough to listen and to relate to where you might feel challenged, and how systems or groups of people might see you just a little bit differently.
I love that, Solunis. One of the things that struck me, going back a little bit, Rudy mentioned that coaching wasn't available to him. And then Stuart mentioned that in his workplace in the tech sector, that he saw a lot of people in pain. And for me, it's always interesting, especially as a Black woman coach, there's so many people of the global majority who need coaching, who want coaching, but they simply don't have access to it. And I've seen throughout my career as a coach that they see me, there's that visibility and representation, but they don't have the resources to pay for it themselves. And if they're not necessarily in a leadership role within their organization where they have access to funds, they can't pay for it. And so my question, like going back to you, Solunis, you mentioned that a lot of people of a similar cultural background come to you. Are they paying out of pocket, or is their organization supporting their coaching and the cost of coaching?
So both, actually. Whenever I'm with a client and working inside of like the personal domain, when they're coming to me individually, we're generally not talking about their careers, right? I'm not coaching them on their careers. That's a part of the life arc that they're generally needing support, but they're having issues around, like, how do I be myself, or how do I connect to another person? right? It's more inside of an intimate space or relational space, or questions around, well, I get pretty often questions around like how, and for women, I'm going to say this is particularly true or keen, is how do I be in my power?
Mm.
Like, how do I make choices that are good for me and still be mom or executive and loved at the same time, right? Because there's also the fear around if I'm too much of something, will I be disconnected from this community or this unit of people?
Got it. Thank you.
Did I answer the question? I hope I spoke.
Somewhat. I was curious more so about access and opportunity, because I know personally, a lot of Black women come to me for coaching, but they're coming as individuals. And so their organization isn't paying for it, isn't willing to pay for it, but they know that they need coaching, that coaching can support them for where they want to go, whether it's up the ladder or just personal development in general. And so I just wondered, from your experience and the experience of others, have you seen something similar, and what do you think we should do about it so that all people can have access to coaching?
I think there are a lot of Black women who are paying for it. They're doing it out of pocket. There's a whole, and I'm seeing the trend increase in the last, I would say at least the last 5 years. It's almost becoming its own industry.
Do you think they should have to?
I think our corporations should be supporting it. It's a part of, like, I would call it mental health care, right? I think that's something that our companies should be underwriting. But I also see how people are putting themselves first. I don't know, Rudy, you or Stuart have seen something different.
Well, I want to speak about the first question before I talk about finances a little bit, and that was, what as a person of the global majority do I think about, or do what I see, or what is it like working with PGM folk? I will certainly talk about the financial question that Lakeya posted, because I fundamentally believe that money should not be a barrier to people getting the resources that they need. I fundamentally believe that, period. And how we operationalize that, it looks different from place to place. But one of the things that I think, in my experience of coaching, there's that fine line between how you relate to people, because you got to be as authentic as you can about who you are and what you bring, while not centering yourself in the coaching relationship. It's not about you, it's about the person who you're engaged with. It's about you thinking about them, but they want to know that, they want to be able to reach you. They want to know that you can see them clearly. And I think one of the things that I've loved about some of my clients who are PGM is that they recognize a particular piece of bigotry that many of their white leaders experience that we don't experience. White leaders who are surprised at how brilliant they are, or who are surprised at how competent they are, or who are surprised. And that I, as a Black man, do not carry the bigotry of low expectation. And that's a contradiction that many people, like, are so happy, like, oh, you actually see me clearly. So you're not here to fix me or correct me or improve me, but to be a resource so that I can fully be me. And I think that is one of the most valuable things that we as PGM coaches bring, is the ability to not be confused about the way that the oppression has set on people, and can separate them from experiences, from humanness from conditions. So that's one of the things that I think I wanted to add to the question that Stuart posted. And again, Lakeya, I appreciate the question. It's yet another one of those balance things. Like, I've done a lot of pro bono work, right? I'm like, all right, I got to make sure that money is not an obstacle to people getting full access to resource. Sometimes that means, like, I haven't thought well about myself. So I got to find that balance between, how much can what's the balance of, I'm going to do this for you without worrying about compensation, versus what do I insist on people being able to figure out. Fortunately, most of my clients are supported by their institution. And I think that's really a great model that it should be supported by. They should be investing in every dimension of their team's success, including providing executive coaching when that's appropriate. So I don't have a lot of people who've had money as a barrier, quite honestly, because most of them are supported thoughtfully by the institutions that we work with. There's still lots of room for more, but that's my experience.
I really want to go back to what you said a little bit earlier, Rudy, about having the bigotry of low expectations. I think a lot of times also people who are, especially people of the global majority, who are offered coaching, it's couched as, we're going to fix you. And that makes it hard to enter into the coaching relationship, because who wants to be fixed? Who wants to be the identified patient when you're brilliant, amazing, and wonderful? But because of whatever reason, your boss or your organization or company decides that you need to be coaching to be trained, fixed, whatever. And one of the things I'm noticing, especially when having initial conversations with people, and there's a slight differentiation between women and men. Women will go and do the work, or sometimes men will be resistant and will avoid the work. And so one of the things I try and set, as in any coaching relationship, that there's a confidential space for you to go wherever you need to go. And I don't care whether you stay with the company or not. It really is in service of you trying to achieve a goal that you want to achieve, and how do we support you to get there. And I think if I could have one thing for anybody watching this to know, is that any one of us will be in your corner as a coach, not in the corner of the organization. There are things that we might have to do, report out, obviously with your full permission, and we hold things in confidence that you don't want to have repeated. But that we are here to support those individuals, especially since we work within tech a lot. It can get fraught. So how do we manage that in a way that supports the person? So I just wanted to say that. And then of course, the pricing stuff is really interesting. A lot of times people will show up to me and they're like, I want you to coach me. And I'm like, okay, it's this range. And they're like, whoa. I thought it was like $10 an hour. That's not how it works, given my skill and all the time and effort I put in. But as Rudy said, there's certain people that you will support, and then there's certain people that you just can't, because your plate is full and you just have to manage that. My next question, given that we were just talking about, is how would you help somebody determine if their coach is culturally competent to coach them? Because what you're saying, Rudy, was really important, which is we don't have that like a low set of low-level expectations. We also don't have, most of the times, I would hope that most POGM coaches don't have the idea that you have to look or act a certain way, your hair has to be a certain way, you have to dress a certain way. We're more interested in the person. So if you were to support someone, how would you help them understand that either you are culturally competent to support them, or if they were working with another coach, that coach is culturally competent to support them? Does that make sense?
I'm just going to clarify and see if I can speak it back.
Sure.
How do you demonstrate it? Or
how do you demonstrate it? One, or if somebody came to you and says, I have a coach, what should I ask them? What would you say to that person?
I advise people to take a meeting, like a 15-minute meeting. I think the first thing, you'll know gutturally in that first 10, 15 minutes as to whether or not there's a match or alignment there. And then know what your intent is, right? Like, what are your goals, and whether or not this person is competent to help you get to what that goal or that commitment is.
Yeah.
I don't know, I have a couple of, thoughts about that, Stuart. And I think Solunis answered it best for me. It's a gut check. It is like, I know in hanging out with you for 10 or 15 minutes that I can be open about you, that I don't have to explain everything to you, that there are, we don't have to have the exact same life story, but there are some cultural references, nuances that I don't have to worry about interpreting for you in order to show what I'm trying to figure out. And it's not necessarily just because we share a racial identity, because that's not the thing. As one of my young mentors will always tell me, Uncle Rudy, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. You just really gotta recognize that alone does not assume knowledge, relationship, connection. It's not just because we happen to also be of the same racial identity. So it really is about taking the risk to dare to see the person as resource, to check to see the things that you need to know them about you and how that lands, and if you feel comfortable in being able to open yourself. That's what a culturally competent relationship looks like to me.
Yeah, I also agree and relate to that. If you're seeking out a coach, similar to if you were seeking out a therapist, you should be interviewing that person for fit. That person's also interviewing you for fit. And whether it's skin folk or not, everyone isn't always going to be a fit. You usually could tell in your gut, as Solunis and Rudy mentioned, personality styles, but then going back to culturally competent, everyone doesn't know everything, myself included, even as a Black woman. So coaches need to be culturally humble. You need to be able to acknowledge and admit what you know and don't know. And that might not come out, within the first 15 or 30 minutes of a discovery call. But if you're comfortable with your coach and later on you're offended or impacted by something that they do, the relationship should be at a point where you can voice that and have a vulnerable conversation about it. And if you don't feel that you can have that, then perhaps it's not an appropriate fit for you.
I love that vulnerability. Yes, absolutely. Because as coaches, we don't know. Good Lord, we don't know everything. But what you were saying earlier, I forget who said it, maybe it was you, Rudy, or you, Solunis, but there's something about trusting the wisdom of your body. And Solunis, I know you as a somatic coach really has that sort of depth and understanding. But we have to trust our bodies, because in this country, it's so easy to get disassociated from our body and what our body needs and body wants. And so getting back in touch with that, certainly in a coaching experience, is super powerful.
Can I just say that, add to that? Because that's one of the greatest lessons for me, is that, I've been trained so much to hear what people think. It's all about thought. That's the system that I inherited, grew up in. And there are many more ways to know things than just what your brain processes. And so that's been one of the really, good things about growing myself and growing with other people who know, there are more ways to know things, and you need to be able to be willing to take in and share information at the physical, guttural, visceral levels that aren't just about words and how you articulate things. So I love that you said that, because that's so important to me too.
Absolutely. The thing that's coming up for me right now is that the practice of being where your feet are. I don't know if any of you heard that before.
I heard from you.
Oh. But it is the most difficult thing to do, right? At least to me, and I'm practicing this all the time, right? Being present and actually allowing yourself to soften enough to actually feel and know what your instincts are trying to say to you. It's challenging, to say the least, but it's one that you have to continue to allow yourself to be open to and to continue to practice in order to hone in on it. So it is not something that's easily done.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's powerful in this idea of being present, especially for POGM folks. How do you be present also in systems that are not designed for you to be present in? And this is true for anybody, right? So I have many clients who are white identified, who are not present in their bodies, not present in the places. So it's true for everybody, but especially for underrepresented folks, you know, Latinx, Asian, African heritage folks. Like, how do you stay present in your body, in your position, in your job, and know and take in the wisdom of your body as you're listening to that? That's really a hard thing to do. And I love that you're saying, Rudy, also there's other ways to know things. There's emotional, kinesthetic, spiritual. There's all these different ways that we can take in information. What are some of the things that you would want people to know about coaching in general? And I love when I ask hard questions because you all go, huh? They're quiet for a second.
I mean, I'll start. And, you know, I was meeting with a potential client this week, doing that, you know, the touch, the interview, the 15 minutes of connection. And it was very clear to me that coaching is not for them. And that, you know, coaching must never be a substitute for therapy. And if this is what the person needs, then you should help direct them to the resource that's appropriate for them. So it's okay you should seek every resource they can, but sometimes it's not the right thing that you need at the moment. And I want people to know that. Don't feel bad about it. It's just not the tool that'll be most useful in your life right now. That's one of the things that I think I really want people to know about coaching.
Rudy, I would love for you to explain the difference. I feel like I have this conversation pretty regularly with folks, but I would love to hear your definition between like what a therapist does and what a coach does, and how do you explain that to someone?
Yeah, I probably think Lakeya is probably better suited to answer that as a person who's, you know, licensed in both areas of this work. But I will just say, because I said it, that, you know, some people really need all kind of things from medical interventions, from you know psychology, psychiatry, you know, any kind of other counseling and therapy. And that's really where people are. You should be able to help people discern what is the thing. Counseling, you know, is more of you correct me, Lakeya, any place that I make mistakes, but, you know, coaching is not it's not a sort of prescriptive thing. And sometimes you need a prescriptive intervention. Sometimes you need a trained therapist or psychologist or social worker who can actually prescribe a course of direction that's useful for you. I think coaching is best suited for people who are really functioning high, and who want to have, you know, some support to function higher, you know, to clear some of the things that are in the way, so they can really have a relationship that helps them to think and seek their next level for themselves. And it's not a mental health. Coaches are not mental health professionals. We're not trained that way, unless we happen to also be. But that is not the discipline that coaching is.
Beautiful explanation, Rudy. I would just add that coaching has to do with inquiry. And so while coaches at the onset of an engagement, they may go backwards a little bit in order to understand someone's beliefs and mindset, ways of thinking, and how their background influences where they are now. It's then focused on the present and the future, whereas with therapy, it's going a lot deeper. And so yes, there's some inquiry, but there's also a clinician who is, as Rudy indicated, prescribing for you based on what you've been through, processes that you can go through to work through your trauma. So for me, I have a therapeutic background, but I don't do that now. So in coaching, I can recognize things that stand out as a mental health issue, and I'll touch on it and I'll say, do you have a therapist? If not, you know, are you willing to consider before the next time we meet, looking into some therapists in your local area and reporting back? Or I'd recommend that you consider bringing this up to your therapist at your next call or meeting or whatever. And so I'll point it out, but I don't necessarily go there because that's not my role as a coach. And then I guess back to the question, another thing that I would mention is that coaching is work. And so a lot of times people think of a coach as someone who's going to come and wave this magic wand and, I'm here, I want to be an executive, or I want to raise millions or do whatever. And then ta-da, now you have it. That's not the case. Yes, we possibly could get there, but you have to be willing to do the work. If you're not going to do your homework in between sessions, walk the walk and take actions based on our conversations, then it's not going to be a productive use of your time. And so I'd say for coaching, you have to be willing to do the work.
You know what, as you're listening to you both, and going back to everybody needs support. Everybody could use support, whether it is coaching or therapy. And so I'll go on public record and saying I have both. I have a coach and a therapist. Because especially if you're operating at the level that Rudy, you were saying earlier, like if you're operating at a high level, you recognize you need support. And so what is it like for us as we're going into coaching to say, hey, do you have a team around you? I am one, I should be one of many. I should be one of many. There should be like your coach, your therapist, your acupuncturist, your whatever the thing is that you need, both body, mind, and soul, to help you as you navigate in these sort of more, sometimes harder waters, choppier waters of leadership, right? And so if I could put this on a t-shirt, it would be, there's no such thing as too much help. There's no such thing as too much help. If you can get all the help you can get and then some, please go out and do so.
You could put that on a t-shirt. That'd be a lovely shirt.
Yeah, I think we'll all come up. So we'll hear it first. The evolution t-shirt. There's no such thing as too much help.
Yeah, the other thing I'll add though about what a coach, because I said what it's not, I want to say that the client role in coaching is really an active role. It's not a passive role. And I think in the coaching training, you learn as a coach to have every session, every relationship with the coach, with the client, have the FMO, the focus, meaning, and outcome for every session. So I don't get to tell my client what they're going to focus on. I'm going to support you to think about it and how to move in that direction. But you have to come prepared. You have to be actively engaged in thinking about what you're trying to move. And I think that's a really important part of what coaching is.
Which is also a little different than consulting, right? So when you're coaching, you're asking the questions and you know that the client essentially has the answers, but just helping them to get there or to develop the practices that are needed for that next evolution or that next evolution, for the next evolution, for the next change or the next level, right? Which is different than consulting when you're coming in to give answers or advise, which is a little different.
Yeah. So I'm really curious, like what is one thing or one or two things that you'd want people to know about you as a coach that we haven't talked about so far? Like what are the areas maybe that you focus on or drawn to? What are things that you want people to know about you as a coach?
I think I'm most drawn to people in transition, right? I help people in movement, right? From one phase to another. And I do enjoy helping people uncover what they're most passionate about, right? And how to get there. So those are some of the things that doesn't readily come out forward when you, I would say, at my work.
I'd say for me, I really help people to truly see all of their gifts, to really see themselves, to look in the mirror and to see what everyone else sees and to own it, to really own what they bring to the table. Solunis mentioned power. I help people own their power, be vulnerable, but then be courageous enough to go after what it is they want, whether it's a new job, becoming an entrepreneur, moving up the ladder, whatever it is. I help them first see themselves and then take the steps to get what it is that they're seeking.
I love what you two said. And I think the one thing I'll add about what you should know about me is I really, I'm very good at separating people from their circumstances. And you won't actually get to be victim around me. You won't get to play small around me. You know, I'm pretty good at seeing what Lakeya said, that thing that other people see. You know, that big you, that real you. That, you know, I'm good at that, and I make space for the things that happened that get you a little bit to forget it, but not as a place to land. That's a place that we're going to move beyond, really seeing and reaching for your bigness.
So lovely. I mean, I can't help but think anybody who would be lucky to have any one of you as a coach. I mean, there's so many opportunities to support people in each of those domains. I think I'll add for myself, my power seems to be steadiness. And it's a steadiness with a little bit of a springboard. So if you're the kind of person that is in the middle of what do I do? How do I level up? How do I move up? And especially as I've worked with a number of C-suite folks who have just recently gotten to their position or have transferred from one company to another, they need somebody who's going to coach them with a steady hand. And I think that is my superpower, which is to help people as they go, and I can come back and be that place where they're like, am I doing the right thing? Okay, I'm like, what's going on for you right now? You know, and so they can like work out the churn in their brain, and it really supports them. I think we're coming up to the end of our time. So what's one thing that you'd like to say to close?
I love this group of people.
Yes. And then to the people who are watching, what would you like to say to them?
I guess for myself, I would just say that know that we have you. And so we know from personal experience, I know from personal experience, how difficult and challenging it could be to navigate places that weren't created for you. But we've been there, we're there, and we use ourselves as an instrument, and we're skilled, qualified, and experienced to really just be a partner for you through your process. And so I'd leave with that. Like, we know from experience what it's like, and we'll be there to support you.
Love that. And I think that what I want to say to the room is I want to demystify this process. I want to make sure that you see people, whoever's listening, consider this is something that's a resource for yourself, and that, you know, it's not magic. Even though we're magical, doesn't mean it's magic. It's a very thoughtful and intuitive and skillful place to engage with people. But it's accessible. And I want to make sure that you know that we are accessible as coaches, and that the process is accessible if it's something that you want. So feel free, people who are listening, to ask any question that you want to ask, because that's really how you'll decide if this makes sense for you.
That's great, Rudy. One of the I think universal truths is that we're not supposed to do anything alone, right? And that self-reliance, or strong self-reliance, is oftentimes a sign of trauma. And so if you, as interdependent beings, right? Coaching is one of those resources that will help just add fullness to your life, right? We're not supposed to do any of this by ourselves. And we're here as a resource.
Well, I'll say what an amazing group of people you are. So to echo what you said, Solunis, I love being in company and companionship and in partnership with all of you. I think, and as I listen to you all, evolution is lucky to have us, and to have us thinking about coaching, not from the traditional coaching paradigm, but sort of in this larger context of society as there's massive change and massive reckoning that is happening. And so we support people as this all is happening. And I think it's an opportunity for anyone who's watching or listening to us to, as I think Rudy said, come and check with us, have a question, ask us questions, see if we're a fit for you, and see if we can help you on your journey. And with that, I'll just say thank you so much for anybody who's watching. Thank you so much for your time, your curiosity. And if you're at the end of this, please reach out to any one of us. You'll find our email addresses and bios attached to this recording. You can reach out to any of us and talk to us about possibly engaging us as coaches. Thank you so much, everyone.